I was rocking too hard. To the suburban grooves, you gonna the young you. Who you pop rappers, you just acting, you're not actually that. Set it now. Alright, check it, testing 1, 2, 3. Dimitri and the Scarecrow right here. We're about to do a crowbar of the track Posers with DJ Vadim. Alright, cool. So Posers is pretty much, self-explanatory. It's a very simple, repeated sort of mantra of a chorus, isn't it? You're just posers, you know you won't be here that long. You're just posers, you know you won't be here that long. It was basically the way that I wrote that track is very interesting because initially when I wrote those lyrics, they were lyrics for another track that had been produced by a friend of mine, the first guy that actually opened up his studio for me to record for free for the longest time. His name is, his alias was Phoenix Black. But in order to honor his memory, because he passed away, is Arnold Marata. And rest in peace, Arnold. But he had dropped me this beat and I had written these bars to it. But of course, one of the major things that would happen is that, I'd have my own production and then he'd have his production and, you just get overwhelmed because, I'd spent years just writing hip-hop bars and songs and whatever, and suddenly when I had access, I was trying to, this is when I decided that I wanted to take this thing seriously, and because in Africa, you don't get that opportunity, life is happening so immediately that at a pace that you cannot, sometimes the idea that I can be a hip-hop artist on African soil is absurd to some people because, people have to do all sorts of jobs in order to make a living and earn money and put food on the table, go to school, etc., etc. So Arnold opened up his house to me and then I wrote these bars. And then at some point when I came to Uganda, I met up with the East Africa Records guys. And of course, I've got a gripe with those guys now, but of course, it wasn't all bad. It would be unfair to completely just say, oh yeah, by the way, it was all terrible. The song, the meaning behind the song, well, I wrote the song more as a retort against what was being called initially in Zimbabwe, urban grooves. It's not that I had a gripe with people making music at the time. I had a problem with the fact that people were making mediocre music and calling it another genre, almost as if it's an excuse. They were taking hip-hop, dancehall, R&B, and just blending it into this, and then just being like, nah, it's urban grooves. Like, what do you mean it's urban grooves? That's not a genre. That's just a blending of all sorts of stuff, and then just saying, oh yeah, by the way, we just created our own thing. Sure, Zimbabwe needed its own sound, and it had a distinct sound. That's true. But, it was still, hip-hop is still hip-hop, and, R&B is going to be R&B. So that's why I go, so I start off with a very visceral line, a conscious body of work is inadequate for the mortician. True sport is for cadavers to spawn as raw specimen. The roticity of my glossary summons Catholics with rosaries and unbended me fallacious beats and come to pathetic whimpering and Pater Noster Kies in Kailis, which is just basically Latin for Our Father who art in heaven. Father, you can protect your precious daughter's turgid hymen, basically. I just came out very visceral. I was on fire. Because I was heated. I was just like, and I was just, I'm just sick and tired of, I'm tired of pop sometimes, I'm like, pop doesn't have to be a terrible genre, you know what I mean? There's some good pop, and then there's just terrible pop. Pop is just popular music, right? And it's just, the things that just go trending, sometimes they're absurd. And they don't have any staying power. And, it's all about escapism. Like right now, when you check out hip hop, the state of hip hop is that a lot of it is just nonsense. Guys just talking a bunch of nonsense all the time. It's just a bunch of nonsense. Like, people don't know how, like, it's almost like artists just come out and they don't even know how to make music. I remember this one time, this dude was working for Universal Music Group Africa. Yes, I'm calling them out. And he brings over these kids, and all they're doing, so they just were thrown into a room, and they're just drinking and smoking weed. And then this dude has a laptop and whatever, and then they're just, apparently that's the work environment. I'm like, word? Like, all they're like, yo, we just want battles and all of this. And I'm like, so these are supposed to be the leaders of culture. Word? And so like this guy like puts me into the room. He's just like, yeah, figure it out. I'm like, I'm not collaborating with a bunch of high kids. I'm not doing that shit. If we're gonna collaborate, it has to be a serious effort to actually, make something of substance. So when I wrote those lyrics, it's like, a conscious body of work is inadequate. Basically, if you're a conscious person, it's inadequate for a mortician, right? What's a mortician? You know what a mortician is. It's the person who basically is dealing with the dead bodies and shit. But if it's conscious, that means it's alive. So it's inadequate for the mortician. So basically, it was just like, a layered bar in itself. A conscious body of work is inadequate for the mortician. True sport is for cadavers to spawn as raw specimen. Right? Just imagine if cadavers could spawn as another specimen of things. So it's just, just talking about the death of arts and culture, and just how people don't necessarily, like, they say what? Live each day as if, no, not as the last one, as if you intended to. Like as if it was by intent, Like, you have to, I'm not here trying to, spew some platitudes or some fake-ass lessons or whatever. It's just, if you have the gift of being able to create music and stuff like that, why are you always just looking for the one hit in order to make a break and then like become this alleged superstar? I've never been one who's attracted to superstardom. I'm all about, let me make my art quietly, give me my money, and let me go chill out, and just be able to move amongst people, because I do, all of this stuff that I write is all about people. And I go into this track and I just say, basically, I'm just attacking a lot of pop rappers and all of that. And, I'm just like, yeah, you're just posers. You won't be here that long, It's like lasting power and staying power are something that, of course has become increasingly difficult, because obviously, the way that music is made these days, it's just, it's just this machine whereby they're just popping out all these tracks. It's not really, it's very rare and very difficult to find people that are trying to really push the boundaries on production or, sounds and the nuances of it, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel as though, I always try to push that boundary and go for it, trying to find something that is truly, artistic and has staying power, that you can listen to this song 10, 20, 30, 40 years, 100 years from now, and know that what I was talking about was something that was legit, because it's still going to be a fact today, tomorrow, next year, the year after. The longer that we keep watching all these award shows happen, the more you realize how absurd all of the awards anyway are. It's just become a parody unto itself. So people spend time and they're talking about, oh no, you've got all these accolades. I'm like, yes, you can have accolades. But if we're pandering ignorance as a form of art, and people are just, like the powers that be keep throwing money at us, right? The more ignorant stuff that, artists do, the more money they seem to have. The people that actually, have, the people that actually have true quality of music, they're always the underground. So you actually have to look for good music these days. This is a consumer-based economy that we live in. This is business for them. They don't care about artists. They don't care about you. They, why on earth would you keep your artists drugged and drinking, as opposed to just being productive and healthy and actually doing stuff that, because people keep saying, it's easy to let people slip under the guise of, this is creative inspiration, whilst they're actually messing up their own lives. Youth goes just like this. And people don't understand that, like when you're in especially, and you're an easy target. If you're fresh from high school, or you're still in high school and you're in your early 20s, you don't know anything. The things that define you are not necessarily things that you actually need. You don't have a proper code, you don't have an ethos, you don't have a philosophy about anything about yourself. You're still an adult who's growing, who's still trying to form an idea about this world and how you interpret it and how you fit into the whole thing. So universal music, whether it's whatever, they don't care about you as an artist. They're there to make money. That's it. And when they say, oh, no, we can make a deal with you. Dude, most of these deals are just slavery, right? It's not for the faint of heart. Some people get into these and they know what they're doing and then they tough it out, right? I'm just like, I spend too much time, I've spent so much time crafting and laboring over this thing that to just simply give it away for a few dollars is absurd. And money is a funny concept, right? Everybody wants money. I want money. I want to get paid. But you also can't take it with you when you die. And money is supposed to serve me, not the other way around. So that's where I stand. So that's why I got that posers vibe going on.
From where your perspective comes from?
For me, it's about, it's about, for me, the purpose of this song is more about reminding artists that we have a duty. That's as curators of culture or custodians of culture, as the people who tell of the times, because somewhere along the way somebody should be able to listen to some music and be like, oh yeah, it reminds me of this time in this space at this period, and it's about capturing those moments, but at the same time it's a stern reminder that if you keep trying to do all this, let me please the people and whatever, the people will move on with or without you, one way or another. Somebody else is going to make another pop tune soon enough and you'll be forgotten. And it's like, what is your legacy? What do you want to leave behind? And for me, I always felt like, if anything, if I happen to be gone tomorrow, somebody can listen to my stuff and be like, well, he was making sense when he was talking about this stuff. And that's what Posers is about. It's not necessarily, this is not a politically charged song. It's just, it's more to do with the artistic, the state of art, the state of, the people who create art or who are responsible for, pushing forward the stories of today. So usually within the context of hip hop, right, it is very, if you're called a bitch, you're weak, basically. The idea is, I think a lot of pop culture is pandering weakness and trying to make it sound like it's individualistic, and it's not. So I say, Father, you can't protect your precious daughter's turgid hymen. I'm about to break the seal and steal your little confidence. You are not above reproaching aliens and lyrical virgins. You know, I'm just saying, like, plenty of artists now, because of the way that the the whole landscape of music right now, the way that it happens is that you can literally just become famous without necessarily having been tested, right? You can make videos on your own at home and just start posting them shits online. And if it catches on to some people, because people are into weird things online anyway, you could make money off that shit, right? And suddenly you're an artist and you become a mainstay. And then you find that, like music festivals are no longer, for example, music festivals are no longer what I used to really like. At least, when I look at it, everybody's just like, yeah, no, Glastonbury and whatever. They're all big stages, But every time I've been to music festivals, the ones that I really like, I always like them to be a bit more smaller because they always attracted like artists who really were trying hard and really, hone in on the craft. And it's not all just lights and, flashing lights and all of that, it's and glamour. It's not that. It's actual, you can see an artist has actually put in some work and done a rehearsal, put it together and really put some good work together, And it's one of the things that I've always liked. I've never been attracted to the idea of playing for thousands of people because I don't feel like you necessarily communicate that well to a huge group of people, because people are usually just, if it's a huge group, they're just drinking. It's a party. I like it when you're in the smaller rooms and, for example, at the Harare International Festival of the Arts, there used to be this stage called the global stage. And what they do is they fix up this huge tent, and maybe you could fit in 100, 200, maybe 300. I don't even know if 300 people could fit in there, but I'm just estimating that maybe 100 to 200 people could fit in there. Or maybe even just 100, to be honest. But you felt so in touch with the music because it wasn't like you were talking or anything. You were really engaged in, you were really, cued in with the artist. You were locked in. You were listening. You were paying attention, and this is exactly what I'm going with the posers. It's just, a lot of these lines, you can break it down the way you like. I'm not going to break down everything for everybody. So that's what you get. Dimitri and the Scarecrow, posers.